the first episode.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen the first episode. Yeah, I guess you would have to figure something out with that.
Polo's naked. A lot.
Holy shit. All right. I didn't know this. This is harder to adapt all of a sudden. You just have like just straight censor bars. She would probably be wearing clothes. They would 100% put her in like underwear. Welcome everyone to Otaku Flavored. Today I'm here with Jay. I think I'm always here with Jay.
Pretty much, if it's not me, then who is it going to be?
That would be weird. Well, one day, hopefully, we'll have guests when all of this is crazily over.
Point,
We've thought about that before. Like, we need to figure that out at some point. I think having a guest on will be a lot of fun. But yeah.
Yeah, there's some of that we've tried for, but it's just tying it up with the fact that we can't go anywhere or do anything.
Yeah.
But people are tired of us hearing about that, and there's other things that we can talk about. So let's just go ahead and jump into what the crud we want to talk about for the day.
What do we want to talk about today? I was thinking, basically, I feel like anime is really, really bad at, well, not all anime. God, I'm so bad at this, but anime is bad at showing you the story. They love telling you. There's so many times where I'm watching something and all of a sudden they need to explain it to the T of what's going on. And we didn't need that. Like, we could have sat here and tried to figure it out ourselves, and that's fine. Yes. I would much rather that. Or you could have done it by actually, like, showing us what's going on instead of just having two characters in dialogue talk about how these zombies are created by this machine right over here that I'm about to point at. And, like, we can tell that the zombies machine is creating zombies if you just show us it creating zombies. I don't really have a good in my mind right now an anime that's done this without doing like massive spoilers, which always sucks.
But... Well, here I'll throw something to that.
Okay, cool.
Really quick, like there's a couple forms of this. There's either the show that's like from episode 1. Here are the things that is happening around us. This is the leveling system. These are the ways that they're doing it, and this is all the other stuff that you need to know. And that's just like episode 1 is just word vomit. Or one of my least favorite ones is when we get this awesome show that's just flowing, and then it cuts to either a recap that is like both a recap and an explanation, or just a random dump of knowledge that we really never would have needed. So one of these that exists is either in Darling in the Franxx, there's an episode where they jump back to like a scientist before the war, and they just like have him dump all this knowledge about the magma and where things come from.
You're right.
Yeah,
I cut that out of my memory
because it's useless. It's completely dumb. It's not worth onto the story. It doesn't add anything. You don't get anything from it, and he just keeps going on and on and on about how the Klaxosaurs and all these things existed and all the stuff that's going on with it. Without spoiling much, it's just an overly complicated dump.
Yeah, I think
that ruins it for a lot of people.
Weirdly enough, that reminds me of just how it is so useless for them to throw that in, basically, at the point they throw it in, because they're trying to develop a character, it feels like, for this doctor. They're trying to give him more background and things when he looks cool. All right, and we already know that, like, I don't know if it's spoilers, but you learn fairly quickly, like, who he is, basically. They already have explained that, so we didn't need to go back in time to see what made him, basically. It does feel like it's trying to set up for something way later on that doesn't necessarily pay off very well, which is one of the things that anime, I think that's why they do those type of episodes, is because they want you to be like, look at this dude who we've had around for 50 episodes. Here's like something new about him, which can be done really right. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because weirdly enough, Oda, One Piece, he does a very, very good job at introducing new aspects to characters that you've known forever. But they're usually main characters. It's not like a side character. It's not someone who you're going to throw away that you don't necessarily care about. And in that aspect, I think it's fine. Like, if we learn more about any of the main characters, any of the main crew from that, it makes more sense to learn about
Mhm.
them because we're going to be around them all the time. Where the Doctor, not so often.
We get it. He's a doctor. He's been around for a long time. There's a lot of clues that hedge to what was already going on. Anyways, we didn't need those explanations. But then we also get the more subtle ones that are completely dumb in my head, where it's like just basically a recap. But then you get people pontificating about the idea of like, oh, the things that they explained in this episode, we finally get to know the reasons why. And it's like, the most recent of that is the most current episode, and why we're not going to be talking about it later is Wonder Egg Priority.
Oh,
Is
okay.
nothing but a recap episode.
Yeah.
And I legitimately have seen several videos out there of other people being like, the things they finally explained. I'm like,
no, I
did
know.
I miss-
Okay. We're just gonna jump into Wonder Egg right here. It's really weird. I love you because I feel like you noticed that most likely this is where this came from, because I did watch this episode
what I
recently. And holy shit, you guys, what the fuck? We didn't need a recap right there. That
No.
is just an overdub of. It felt like a throwaway of an episode. This is the first episode of this series where I'm like, oh no. Like, I thought it was going to be a special. I actually tripped out. I actually literally, when it came out, I was like, okay, all right. This is strange. Why are we doing this right now? This doesn't make sense. So it's basically, yeah, why did we explain everything? Why did we have to go into such grave detail to explain everything right then? That episode doesn't need to exist. Like,
what Smooth Brain really didn't understand what was going on by that point in the show as well. Like,
I know. Like,
who is this for and why?
I think that's I guess that's one of my gripes with anime is they love doing that for some reason. They love showing you, or just like telling you exactly what's going down. Like, let alone how Wonder Egg did it, but even subtly, yeah, they just love basically trying to go into such I can't talk. They go into great detail.
Excruciating amounts
Thank
of detail.
you. Oh my god, saved.
And it's one of those things where like Wonder Egg was doing so good before that episode, and it's probably going to do great afterwards. Like, it doesn't need those explanations, and never did and never should. It in the same way like Fooly Cooly doesn't actually need explanations. It's just a good source of material. So I want to take it away from this for just a second and show where it goes completely wrong. And it's not even an anime that I want to show where it goes completely wrong. Here's an example a lot of people are going to be able to catch on to, because a lot of people have seen Star Wars.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones that I've ever seen in modern showings was when Han Solo was given a movie. This man, we didn't care about his name because Han Solo, he's a badass. The stories that he told everybody was epic. He did the
Keswick's run, or the Kessel run, yeah.
And he has this amazing ship that he flies like a god, and somehow he's met this amazing friend named Chewie, and it's like all of these things, these myths, these legends that make him who he is. And whether we decided that yes, that is who he is, or we were just like, maybe he's telling like a little bit of lies here and there, but that kind of made up the myth of who he was.
Yeah.
They gave us an entire movie saying, hey guys, by the way, he never did that run. By the way, he's not a good pilot. The ship flies itself.
Oh, no.
By the way, we met his friend while he was eating other humans. By the way, he gets his name Solo because he was by himself when he went to go apply for the academy. It's stupid. It's a throwaway. It means nothing. Everything this guy says is a lie. He's complete bullshit, and you shouldn't care about him anymore. And it's just like, I could have gotten that.
Yeah.
I don't want to know that. I let him be a useless, crappy person that we slipped in behind everything and was like cool because of all that stuff. But now that it's like out there in the open, it's like when you know like your brother who does something really cool and he's like famous or something like that, but then you're just like behind the sscenes, you're like, yeah, when he was young, he used to like suck his thumb. And it's like, no, you don't need to tell his friends that.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, he pissed his pants before. It's like, you didn't need to tell me that. He's still a cool rock star. It's like, no, but yeah, remember when he lived at home? It's like, don't ruin that information for us. And it can go so wrong.
It's so weird because it's one of those things where, like, especially in Star Wars, in lore, he's a scoundrel. He's this guy who's not great. He like grows into such a crazy hero, and I understand so much wanting to explain his background and give you some like, look how cool he is. But that movie did the exact opposite in so many ways. If they had done it to make him actually out to be the person that he turned into be, to actually be a legend, to set him up in a way where all of a sudden you're like, you're right, Han Solo is a badass and he was a badass. But to do what they did and basically take his main myth, which was basically, I did this crazy run in this starship, I'm an amazing pilot, and to literally show you how terrible everything went, how bad it all went down, that yes,
So
it
much
was
of a
the
lie it
ship
is.
at the end of the day that saved everything, that all of a sudden everything went so poorly that yeah, he has to now explain this thing later on as a cool event when in reality, if you were there, it was not whatsoever. And now us as the viewer, we know this. And that
Yeah.
changes him for the rest of the story. That changes him
Yeah.
every time you see him elsewhere. And
Yeah, it could have been implied, sure. Like, I'm fine with the idea of like he was never telling the truth the whole time. Like, that's fine. That's really cool. That adds to it in a way, because then you still admit at that point he's doing something that we don't know.
yeah, no, like
But now we do.
even if he was lying about the run, yeah, we
Yeah.
have to kind of put that into perspective ourselves and be like, cool. Like if we had known that he lied without you showing us what he actually did during that, we could have still built on it that yes, he's a scoundrel. He embellishes the truth. He's a roguelike figure. But now it's just, you know, everything about the dude and you're like, oh, this is Han Solo. This is not who I want. Weirdly enough, Rogue One, which is also kind of a setup for the next event, basically, did a very good job at doing a
Immensely good
setup
job.
and showing you characters who aren't like didn't have a story, that were nobodies, but they were interesting enough to carry on and show you into the next thing. I feel like
My favorite Star Wars movie, honestly.
yeah, I felt like Star
Not
Wars,
gonna lie.
that's where it thrives. That's where Star Wars thrives in a lot of ways, is because it's the stories of these people that we don't know enough about, that we can basically build back their character. It's weird to bring it into like D&D. It's almost as if you wrote a character and you wrote the whole backstory for your character in such a way that if you gave it to your DM and your DM like looks at it and reads over everything, they know everything about your character now, and they know all of the stuff that he's done wrong or that he's done right or whatever it is. But when you're writing it a background correctly, I would say in D&D, there's not a correct way, but if you're writing it, you know, to allow people to fill in some blanks, to figure out more about your character, to allow your imagination to grow from this, that's where any sort of story, I think, becomes more than what it was. That's where legends are born.
Yeah. Don't hand a thesis to your DM, please. Stop doing that, people. I've had people do it. I don't care. Give me the cliff notes.
I know. For character backgrounds, I love more open-ended. If someone literally was like, my character has amnesia, I'm like, thank God. Okay, cool. Like I can do, you're a clean slate. I don't have to worry
Yeah, we
about
can have
anything.
fun.
I'll just tie you in somewhere. Like, but yeah, Star Wars, to me, if we're gonna go on, I kind of want to go on this now.
I mean, just like all fandoms, like we love anime as much as we love every other type
Yes.
of medium out there, and Star Wars is it's an otaku thing. So I think
I grew
let's
up.
just jump into the Star Wars for a minute.
I grew up watching Star Wars hardcore. I loved Star Wars. Star Wars was like probably me getting into sci-fi. Some people argue that Star Wars is fantasy. It's like a mix, sure, because there's knights, you got magic like the Force, you have like your orders and all that, but at the end of the day, it's also a sci-fi because you got your spaceships, you got all that cool
Sci-fi
stuff.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Sure, full send.
And the first ones are so majestic. I remember going back recently and actually rewatching a lot of them, and I mean, sure, they're aged, they're getting older, but it's weird how bringing them into the new era, I really was hoping that we would end up getting better at doing these stories than double backing in such a way. I'm gonna just come out and say that the newest three movies I didn't necessarily care for all that much. I still loved them. Like I will actually rewatch them.
Really?
Yeah,
Because the
I will.
second of the newest movies is probably one of the worst movies I've ever watched
It
in my
is.
life.
No, it is bad. And I'm not gonna come out and tell you like that it's good. The second one actually has some terrible plot points that are like that hurt me.
Hmm.
Um but like the first and third one, yeah, they have their moments. Even the second one has its moments with flying Leia, but it's some of those moments just didn't need to be there. Some of the things that they do, I feel like they could have learned from before. But Star Wars, I think, started to run into an issue where they wanted to explain way too much going on, and they did that in such a poor way of everything lines up perfectly.
Hmm.
And as a viewer sitting there in the theater, you just want your lightsaber battles. If you're like me, I mean, I'm the shonen kid. I like simple things. Blasters go pew, lightsabers go vroom, and like I'm fine with this. Like throw that in there, I'm all set. But even for me, you start noticing things adding up that didn't necessarily need to add up, and things that are so out of place and so perfectly placed. Like weirdly enough, in the
Oh,
third of the newest movies, Star Wars spoilers. You guys know, fuck it.
yeah. If
But
you haven't watched Star Wars by now, you're not going to watch Star Wars.
yeah, straight up. But they like land on a planet that had part of the Death Star that was destroyed, and they're trying to find basically the MacGuffin that will allow them to get to the new Starkiller base. And they found this knife that was made by the Sith forever ago. Like, and so they land on this planet, and somehow that knife has this hidden thing in it that when you pull out and you line up with wreckage that is more new than the knife, most likely, that it somehow points to this thing that's inside of it that no one really knew was there. It's so bad. Like, it's one
Hmm.
of those. It makes me wonder how it got out of the writer's room. Like, no offense to you writers out there. I wonder if any of you were like looking at each other when whoever was pitching this and no one was saying anything. Like,
Yeah, it felt like it got passed off to a side team that was just like chilling with it for a moment, and then as soon as they like it made it into the script, everybody's like, "Who worked on that part?"
yeah,
It's
no,
just-
right? No one owns up all of a sudden. Everyone's like out there reading the thing. They're like, so you want me to hold it up to the, they're like, yeah, hold it up to the thing. And it's like, oh, all right. Full send, I guess.
yeah, they're just like, "We're getting paid, whatever. I'm doing this."
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, the final cut, they're just like, "I guess we got to leave it in because of how else do they get there?" But
How else did they get? Yeah. Which is,
what were we
it's so
doing?
sad to think that you couldn't have come up with a better way to get you guys to the end game of this.
Yeah,
These last three
so
movies, now
bad.
that I'm really thinking about it, there's some really
They're
weird.
so painful.
There's some really weird choices. Like Snoke to me is like such the most placeholder character I've ever seen in modern media, where they basically wanted someone who looked ominous and then realized this is a terrible idea because no one knows who Snoke is. And everyone's trying to figure out who Snoke is in the fandom, and they're like,
Could have been fine.
no, it would
It could
have.
have been fine. Like,
No, it would
yeah,
have been fine if they actually sended Snoke. But then halfway through, they had to kill him in the second movie, basically, instead of trying to do the whole let's make it to the third with the big bad dude. So then they
yeah.
needed a new big bad, and oh
But I
man,
mean, they've done this before. It's like Darth Maul was a badass.
sure,
Who
sure,
people like literally like he was badass for badass sake. Dies during the first one, and it's just like could be said the same thing. But we all love him. He's freaking great. Great
yeah.
character. But Snoke is just the husk
Well,
of a possible character.
and I think the difference is here is that like Snoke's Emperor Palpatine, where like
Mhm.
Kylo is like Darth Maul. I not necessarily. He's more Darth Vader, but
yeah.
still
But
like.
he's that undergrad character that somehow is way better than the main, which is
Yeah, and truthfully, weirdly enough, it's weird saying this. The first movie is not nearly as bad as these last three in so many ways. The first movie
Yeah.
has some terrible things. Like, we can't look past Jar Jar. I love Jar Jar. He's probably one of your guys' favorite characters. There's nothing terribly wrong with Jar Jar other than maybe if you're to look into him too much, but like,
Look, I was 10. I didn't know better. I like Jar Jar. Shut up.
yeah, and I feel like exactly that came out when I was a kid, so it's weird looking at it and knowing that if I was 10 now watching these new Star Wars movies, I'd probably have the same feeling, like the same kind of hype for them that I did, but I don't think they're gonna last nearly as long as the older ones. They just did such a poor job.
Prequel apologist.
Sure.
I've always been a person that's been like, they're not that bad. I actually like them. One of my favorite scenes is actually like looking into how the government worked. Like, I've always been a person that has always been, accepting of them. I've always enjoyed the prequels. They were always interesting to me in their own way. And I even watched the first of the 3 new ones in hope that it was going to be good. Like, I had problems with it, but it wasn't bad. I still had like, all right, no, Snoke, they're gonna plan them out. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Well,
and it's just the second movie is just so bad and unforgiving. It's not a Star Wars film in any sense of the way. Like, it is not a Star Wars film.
It doesn't stick very well. Well, to me, the new ones felt, they played safe. They played really, really safe with episode 7. And then
7 was safe, but safe can be okay.
Which can be okay. Exactly. Yeah. And it had its moments that are actually like memorable, and I can think about certain scenes in it, and I'm like, this is cool. The second or the 8th movie, basically, I think it tried too hard to be different. They wanted to take the Star Wars formula and throw it out the window, and literally in the first like 30 seconds of that movie, they did. Like, 100% full send. I don't want to be your normal Star Wars film, and I think they just did a poor job basically after that. Like, there was so much that needed to be retconned between 2 and 3 that there's literally scenes that you have to just in your head take that happened. Like Luke Saber.
They did retcon. There was an actual amount of retconning that did occur, and they wrote it out in some of the books for it.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah,
there is retconning that did occur between them, and it's that alone shows you just how messy it is.
Yeah, because that to me felt like ambitious writing in the poorest form, I guess, if that makes sense. Because I think of anything that happened in episode 8 other than very 2 slow moving ships that were like basically.
I know there's other stuff that occurred in it, but no.
I know there was a casino world. I remember that. But it is definitely not. I remember at the very end, there's the kid that tries to bring the broom to him and it moves. I
was just like, oh, they're trying to sell some toys right there. They're like, hey, everybody go to Disneyland where you can be a Jedi. That's literally what that looked like. It looked like a commercial moment.
You totally can.
That aside, whatever.
Yeah. Truthfully, I mean,
Star Wars did botch stuff in the originals. I'm not going to say that they're perfect. It was like the moment when they're like midi-chlorians.
Sure.
They fucked up.
Yes, definitely. Episode 1 fucks up. Yes.
To come all the way back around to what started this conversation, don't explain things you don't need to explain. We never needed to know how the Force worked.
Yes.
You never need to know.
It just ruins it. It takes the mysticism out of it. It makes this thing that was once like everything has an energy. Anyone can be a Jedi. You just have to like focus and be able to be a total badass too. You're born with it. All right. If this thing isn't enough in your bloodstream, you can't be a Jedi. Like,
yeah. And like there's some of it that you can, and that's where you do it through showing us. Show us people that are cloned, show us the blood transfusions, do things that like allow them to experiment on it. Like, there's ways to get at this without like hard sending midi-chlorians. It's just, introduce us to it. Here's the biggest problem with explaining stuff as well, and why isekais are so popular now in anime as well is because in isekai the protagonist is introduced to a world they don't know, so they have to explain it to them so that way they can know about it. But here's the thing about any other world where it's not an isekai, or even in isekais where they get dropped into it, there should never be a point where anything around them should be novel to anybody next to you. If they ever ask or explain something in a manner that doesn't seem like it's part of their daily life, you don't just walk up to somebody and be like, water bottles, they, you know, you slurp through the top of them. It's got a lid on it. Like, why are you explaining me a fucking water bottle? I know what a water bottle is, but right, you throw me into a world where nobody's ever had a water bottle before. They're gonna wonder what the hell this is. And that's the thing is like, yeah, or like a game controller. All these things, like you go to a fantasy world that has these new items. Those are novel to that one person, but they should never be novel to anybody else around them. And that's when you get explanations that really grind me more than any other.
Yeah, I feel like if you're having to explain something that's mundane is how I always look at it. So if you're explaining something that by this point you've hammered into people and now you're getting to the point where you're explaining it, weirdly enough, I think isekais, especially in the beginning, they can get away with a lot of this because it's first episode and it's just kind of in that genre to do that sort of thing. But
yeah,
for most other genres and things like that, you don't ever want a moment where you feel like your watchers don't understand enough that you actually have to tell them. Like, if you are a writer and you're feeling all of a sudden, okay, like I have explained all of these things by showing you guys for so long, and maybe I'm getting notes from people that are around me that are producers or whoever it might be who's helping you make this, and they're saying I don't get it, then maybe at that point I could understand why you would want to just hard sell something. But even in that point, you should try to figure out a better way to keep trying to make it more of the story than making it more of dialogue. I think that's one of the things for me is if it's just hard dialogue of characters talking and them just coming across, it's just so boring. It's just so, like nothing's really happening here for me to grow from this, basically, or get entertainment out of what you're doing. Maybe if it's in a crazy heated scene and some dude needs to explain something that's simple that we knew from before, like that makes more sense. But if you're just both walking down the street and you're like, that's a wagon, and that dude's like, oh shit, a wagon, and you're like, yeah, that's a wagon, when we've been following the wagon for 30 like episodes or 15 episodes or something, like, yeah, it just doesn't make sense. It's poor, sad, like I don't want to say it's lazy writing, but
it feels lazy though.
It does
really does.
Yeah.
No, there's so many good examples of shows out there that just full send their concepts. And sure, I get it. I've talked to people who can't grasp some things, and it sucks that we were possibly leaving behind some people for the sake of the rest of us. But
I mean, I will also argue that you can overdo it. Yeah, you could basically keep your viewers so much in the dark for what you're trying, and you're just constantly showing them different aspects, and you're expecting them to like 300 IQ figure these pieces out and fit them together. Yes, I'm not saying like that doesn't happen either, but there's a weird balance of you kind of want these aha moments in. It does happen every once in a while. I feel like I hit these great moments where I'm sitting there thinking, this is what I think is going to happen. And like, I'll usually do this when I'm talking with Tiff or other people, is I like to, especially if we're all watching something together, I'll be like, this is what I think's going to happen. And then we all kind of can talk about it, get it all going, and then we see if it happens, basically. And that's great, because if you can get those things where people are piecing things together enough to like guess what's going on, it definitely feels cool as a person, but you don't want it so easy that every single episode you're, oh, this is what's going to happen next episode. Like, as far as like a finale or an antithesis of everything coming together, that's where you want that moment to be, that moment to land. And it's hard. It's definitely a balancing act of figuring that out. Because you don't want to leave people behind, and yet you don't want to hold their hand so much that they don't feel like anything can surprise them. Yeah,
it's a hell of a thing. I feel bad to say that I just want stuff to just err on the side of just like letting people understand, because there's so many other medias too where it's just like, and I get it, like I don't want to be that a-hole, like I want everybody to be able to enjoy and have everything for everybody, but it's just like not everything should have to conform to that.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly enough, so looking at Evangelion, I think this is a good aspect of once that show's ending, you're still kind of like, what the fuck? Like, you kind of have an overarching what they were going for. There's a lot involved in that. But at the end of the day, when that concludes, I feel like it's one of those moments where they were just trying to show you so much and not actually tell you what's going on. By the time that show's over, you're still asking yourself, what the hell is going on? Like,
that's what I want. I want stuff that even I don't always understand the first time through. Like I want to be asking questions. I want to be wondering what's going to happen next. Is there going to be a next? I want to ask questions along the way. And so it's one of those things like, I'm guessing maybe there is just a world in which there's people who just don't want that at all. And therefore the moment that it starts happening, they're just like, I'm done with this. And they walk away from it. And I don't know what percentage of the population is what, with each of that.
I mean, it does make sense that you want it as a writer, as a content creator, or like whatever medium you're in, you don't want to lose your viewer, your listener, whatever. You don't want to get to the point where you've confused someone so much that they stop watching. To go to video games is a big one for me. You don't want people to leave or rage quit. You don't want someone to be so frustrated with your game that they basically stop playing and don't ever play it again. It's so strange because at the same time, I love games that push me to the limit of wanting to walk away. I prefer games that would slap my hand away or stab my hand with a knife instead of helping me along the way. And I think that comes from me wanting to overcome a challenge, or in the case of media, I want to piece it together like a detective. Like, which is, I don't know. It's one of those things where getting that aha moment in a show, or finally getting that final piece that falls into place right before a finale, and it's just make or break in a lot of ways for me. That's what makes a good show. That's what either full sends it into the next one. Some shows do it completely out too far. Darling in the Franxx kind of got close to getting to the point where I'm like, I don't know, you guys. Like, these last few episodes, very much an Evangelion. But I don't know.
I get that not every show out there is for me, right? Like, I totally accept and understand that there's but that's the thing, is like the vast majority of shows out there are not what I'm looking for. And so it's one of those things where I guess the only time that it irks me really bad is when it's a show that I already feel is for me, and they break into that moment. AKA the recent episode of Wonder Egg, complete garbage.
Yeah.
The newest episodes of Star Wars, I honestly don't think Star Wars is for me anymore. That's literally the conclusion I walked away with with the last two movies, is I was like, Star Wars isn't me anymore. That's it. It's not made for me. I'm out.
Yeah.
And that sucked. That was a huge moment where I just realized that they decided they weren't making movies for me anymore.
Yeah.
Bye.
And I think that's one of the weird things, is that content in general, I believe, to me, is trying to hit a broader audience, is trying to always hit broader strokes, is looking at what is going to bring in the most people to understand or watch this, which is for me why I think Wonder Egg did what it did, is because it needed people to finally understand what was going on. All the people
but
who
I still don't know what they explained that wasn't already explained.
No,
I'm still confused.
Everything was already explained. It was just now physically explained to you. Which,
I know. They literally just like, okay, here we go.
Exactly. Which for us, it feels like a stab. It feels like that. If I was to rewatch this series, this would be the episode where I'm like, do we skip it? Like, nothing.
100%.
We don't get anything out of this. I'm a completionist. All right. I will rewatch the episode. I watched filler.
I was talking to Katie and I was just like, hey, next time we watch this, I'm skipping it. It's just it's not being included. When we do the rewatch at the end of the season finale to watch the final episode, I'm skipping it. And if you don't skip it because you're the one hosting it or something like that, I'm leaving for 20 minutes and coming back. And
well, I mean, I was just gonna say it'll be a good break for Jay. Jay will already have watched enough, and he's like, I'm gonna go get food. All right, I'll be back after this episode. I hate you guys, because Okay, this actually kind of gets to a weird thing, like a different tangent of the same thing, which is like filler and stuff that isn't necessarily canon or doesn't add to the canon. I
Mhm.
really do enjoy watching that stuff for the sole fact that I like wonder why the hell it's in there a lot of the time. I'm the shonen kid.
Yeah.
I always say this way too much, but I really enjoy just how bad and how distracting filler can be from the main story.
Yeah.
I love Naruto. We're trying to watch through Shippuden. I can't even explain to you how many times we've hit a filler arc in Shippuden and stopped watching. There's got to be at least 100 to 300 episodes in that are not necessarily needed to be in there. And
Right.
it's one of those things where I like watching it because I just keep wondering from a standpoint of a writer or from a standpoint of someone who's running a show, why does this stuff get in there? Like, it intrigues me, especially canon that or stuff that's so far from canon. Like any of the episodes where all of a sudden they're in a different time period, or everything that was going on this week is now completely different than last week. Especially for a weekly airing show, what
Yeah.
goes in your head to think we don't need an episode right now? We don't need to continue the story for like One Piece or Naruto or things like that. It might be because the anime's catching up to the manga and they don't want to catch up to the manga, because then if they surpass the manga, they have to do this whole thing where now we have to come up with it.
Yeah. But why can't we just have downtime? Like, just come back a
Yes.
year from now. It's fine.
That it's comes down to momentum. I do feel like some shows don't want to lose that hype, which is one of the reasons for Attack on Titan right now that's so hard, and why no studio wanted to pick up the newest season of Attack on Titan, was because they want the manga and the anime to end almost simultaneously, which is basically impossible. Like,
But I mean, I feel like we've slowly Attack on Titan is also at the same time an example of the opposite as well, because I feel like we've slowly developed more and more shows where they're okay with taking a 2-year hiatus.
yeah,
And it's fine.
I can
Like,
see that.
Attack on Titan does take long hiatuses.
Between seasons, that is true. I'm trying to
That's
think.
one of the-
I'm trying to think the last show I was watching that didn't have an extremely long hiatus.
No, it seems like all
'Cause
newer
nowadays-
recent shows have really gotten to a point where it's like we were more accepting of this idea of like it might be a year to 2 years before we see part 2 of whatever show we're watching.
Yeah, if
And
we
that's
even see a part
fine.
2. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's another.
That's the thing that scares me about it. And I think
Yeah.
that makes me wonder if people are constantly pushing to get it done sooner or back on again because
Mhm.
they don't want to all of a sudden be the forgotten about show. Weirdly enough, for anime, I do feel like fans are kind of geared towards the understanding that their show is going to go and disappear for a period of time.
Yeah.
I think we've been developed and just like beaten into us that, you know, your show may never come back for a season 2. We set it up for a season 2, but you might never get a season 2. So when your show gets a season 2, you're hyped no matter what. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, this show's great. I don't care what any of you think, and you all should watch it and like it so it gets a season 3. Because I swear to God, but
Yep.
yeah, it's very
The sadness I feel that there'll never be a Spice and Wolf season 3 or Dead Man Wonderland season 2. Or
yeah.
just, like, I can go on and on about the amount of series that I'm just like waiting for the next part of it. And
I do
instead
wonder
have
if
to go to turn to the manga.
Yeah, I do wonder if there is times where we're gonna hit where studios are kind of like grasping at straws for what they want to make next, and they'll pick up some of these things. That's another thing that I wonder, because when Fruits Basket got its remake, basically it's season 2, that made me realize, oh, this is a really old IP that they wanted to refresh in some ways. Is that possible for other IPs? Is there other studios that are gonna look at its success and think, what can I do to take something that's already been done, bring it up, and put a fresh paint of like a coat of paint on it, basically,
And possibly finish it at the same time?
at the same time. Yeah,
That could be an amazing thing to like. I both hate and like it. I both
Yeah.
hate and like this idea. And it's such a sparingly idea that where I want to even see it implemented. It's like when it's Fruits Basket is right on the cusp of needed a new look to
Sure.
be modernized. But there's shows like Spice and Wolf, you couldn't change the animation to make it any better. and all I want is a season 3.
I haven't watched Spice and Wolf from the beginning. Is it 4x3? Is it that old? How old is Spice and Wolf? Is it in widescreen? Because I think that's one of the things for older animes, like even Ouran Host Club, that is now getting a season 2. It was in 4x3 originally, I believe. I might actually be wrong on that for Ouran Host Club, but I do know Fruits Basket was.
So Spice and Wolf came out.
What year did that?
I'm actually trying to find out when the anime launched.
Let me just
2008.
Okay, cool, you got it.
Really? It came out in 2008?
Yeah, that seems.
It feels older than that.
It's so
for
funny.
some reason.
Yeah, that's not too old. Yeah,
no,
that's still
really
fairly old. That's like basically right when I was just finishing up like watching Digimon movies and stuff like that. I wasn't even on Spice and Wolf wasn't even on my horizon. Truthfully, it hasn't been on my horizon until I met you.
Isn't that when we graduated high school though, right? Is around that time?
Yeah, 2007 is when I graduated high school. So it's literally a year, my first year of college that came out, which feels ancient ago. I am ancient.
It feels like a show that came out before I graduated somehow.
Yeah,
but I guess it's not. It came out after. That's so weird.
Yeah, timelines are weird. It's weird looking back on things and realizing when this actually ended up, and it doesn't feel that way. Yeah, time blends. Yeah. But Spice and Wolf, I feel like even if they did have to redo the other seasons, like remaster them to get it to a season 3, I don't think you would necessarily balk at that because you're still getting your season 3.
No, yeah, I would accept it, but it's one of those things where I'm just saying like the artwork is already on point for me. Yeah. Like it's one of those things where it's like I don't want like when you showed me when I saw the redo of Fruits Basket, I was like solid improvement, 100% all the way around. I don't see an improvement happening in Spice and Wolf. Maybe it would.
Well, I mean,
there's a couple of them where it's like I couldn't see it, and there's some of them where I easily could, where I would be like, you know what, Dot Hack Sign is one of my favorite animes of all time.
Yeah,
if you remade that, I'm watching it.
100%.
I'm watching the remake.
100%. I actually think Dot Hack would be a perfect contender to this because that's basically in the same era as Fruits Basket. When did Fruits Basket come out? Now that I have you basically on a webpage, because if I remember correctly, Fruits Basket came out when I was like in middle school. No, I was probably first year of high school. Maybe. It seems like it's like 2004, 2003, I want to say.
Original run July 2001.
2001. It's like I think after like year 2000s and before, like early 2000s and before, all of those are fairly good candidates for being able to be
some of them
breathed some new life into them and brought into the new world. Not saying that's going to do you 100% good for all of these animes. Some shows deserve just to sit back there.
Yeah.
Can't think of one off the top of my head that I'm like, I wouldn't. Well, there's some classics like Lupin the Third. I don't think I would want them to bring Lupin the Third into the new era and try to remaster the old ones necessarily in a new art style. I did learn recently that there is a new Lupin the Third movie that came out 2 years ago, 2019, which I haven't watched, but I saw it. It's like fully animated. It looked pretty cool. It was a different style. It was like kind of Pixar Disney animation. And I think for movies and one-shots and one-offs, that type of stuff, kind of I would rather see than live action. I don't know why now I'm thinking about this. What do you think of live action adaptations if we're breathing new life into anime?
I don't want them. On average, I don't want them. Maybe you could convince me one day. Like, okay, so all right, like I have Alita Battle Angel down here. As one of the things that I have down here, and it's one of those ones where you like when that got remade. It was also came out on my birthday. I was super stoked. Went and watched it. It wasn't the same as the source material, but I loved it. Like I that's my favorite animated live action movie so far.
I haven't seen that one yet, but when that was coming out, it looked like it at least tried to be really interesting. It's good. I did hear as well that it does not necessarily follow the source material.
It's kind of a forgettable movie. It's not a list of movies I want to watch. but it's not bad, and
Yeah.
that's the most I've ever hoped for out of an animated live action adaptation, and that's a sad bar that
It's just like video game movies. Like it's
Mhm.
so the bar is so low on
It
these
really is.
that it basically could be absolute trash to 90% of people, but that like 10% of people who it's their favorite game, it's okay. It's
But then
passable.
we have the Detective Pikachu movie, and that just shows like
That's
games can turn into movies.
That's
Like,
true. That was a good movie. Well, okay,
Mhm.
Pokemon's a weird one because I feel like Pokemon is like they know what to do with their fan base. They
yeah,
understand what people are looking for, and they're not just going to full send this at some studio who doesn't know what they're doing necessarily to bring this into life. Not to say Netflix doesn't know what they're doing, because I actually Witcher, that series, I did like. It was interesting seeing them bring that in, but
that was a good show. Yeah,
you look at Death Note, that was very, very sad as a live action. I haven't watched
Yeah.
the Bleach one, but I saw very
No.
short clips of it, and I started just breaking out and laughing. But it's so strange that anime adaptations, I feel, are inherently harder because you have to have so much CGI in it to get it to that level. Like, some video games are grounded in reality, and those you could probably get away with more often. Even like Halo. I don't know if you ever watched any of the Halo shorts that they
I
did.
did. Yeah,
Those were some of those are surprisingly good, and
yeah.
that's
For what they are, some of them are not terrible. Yeah,
yeah, and that's still somewhat grounded in reality. I'm not saying it's like realistic because it's
yeah.
Master Chief. It's set in the future, but
Right.
it's still not guys warping around with blades and crazy magic abilities and all of that. That's so much easier to do in animation and make it look interesting and cool because they've been doing it for so long. But when you now have to put a human looking person in there, you start getting some really uncanny valley feelings, and you start getting some really weird looking faces and animations going on, especially if you don't have the budget. Like Detective Pikachu, I actually don't know what the budget for that was, but I'm guessing it was fairly high compared to most of these other ones. Like,
Yeah.
I
But hold on. What if we were able to see somebody do a la carte like Roger Rabbit style animation next to humans?
okay, that's an interesting one. So yeah,
There's a part of my life that wants to see something like that.
that actually doesn't seem too terrible. Like in this day and age, I think that could be done fairly well. Actually, sticking with
Mhm.
animation while having live actors.
Mhm.
Because weirdly enough, I actually watched Roger Rabbit like maybe I think it was
good.
last year. It's still
Yeah.
it holds up really well. I watched
Mhm.
something that
It
broke
really does.
down some of the effects that they had to use for that, and it's ridiculous. That was so before its time in so many ways to be able to put those characters in the way that they did with the actors. Like that takes some real talent. But
Mhm.
yeah, now how funny would that be to be watching? I don't know what anime that would work really well with.
I don't know either, but it's
I
one of
think-
those things where it's like,
I think you would have to do something similar to what they did, which is just start throwing in like every known character and like just everyone's hanging out at a bar and you just see like what Luffy hanging out with like Naruto and just
yeah.
throwing everything in that people would realize and be like, oh, that's cool, while you have characters that are walking around that are normal interacting with anime characters. This sounds weird. I'm
No, it
surprised
really
someone
does. I have
hasn't
no
done
idea what's
this
going on
yet
with
in
that.
some ways. But yeah, I don't know.
But there's a ton of animes out there that don't need CGI though.
No, it's true.
There's a thing like that. I'm surprised those haven't.
Yeah,
gotten-
your genre of love, slice of life and stuff like that. I can't picture like Your Lie in April anime or like a live action adaptation
Right.
could
Yeah.
be actually really cool, weirdly enough, if done correctly. I think
Incredibly so. Yeah. Why is that not done as a live action adaptation?
yeah. No,
it's
that's
probably because it's bad, but I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. Those are some weird ones. Like, as far as simple could totally be done, like the story's already there. I think the problem comes down to a lot of people don't want to, I guess if you're a creative, right? I don't think you want to just copy exactly what you're given. You want to
Yeah,
add your own little spice to it or change this or do that.
Can people get over their egos? My God, come on.
Yeah, can we just get some direct adaptations of things? Yeah.
Yeah, stop putting like they'll remember me for. No, we won't. We don't. I don't care. How many people don't care about directors already? People don't even know the names of the person who made the first one. Like, get off yourself.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
It's one of those things like, yes, I'm a person who is a huge studio buff. I can tell you directors. I can tell you the person who did keyframes for a lot of studios. I can tell you the person who did the music for a lot of them. Like, I'm one of those people that really does love diving deep into that. But that's for anime. I can't tell you the actors that's in a large budget movie right now. Like,
yeah,
everybody's got their thing. But there's people out there who can tell me every single actor that was in every single movie they even love. But they can't tell you the director, nor could they tell you any anime that they've ever watched who's in that. And it's one of those things like, at the end of the day, like, just make something good. Don't try to just, come on, guys, get your ego out of the way. But there's too many people that have that idea that they got to leave their mark.
Yeah. And I mean, from like a standpoint of copying someone else's work, I do feel like even if you copied it like exactly and you were able to direct people to do exactly like what was in the anime or whatever it was, that's talent right there. That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an easy thing to do. And I think a lot of people see that as a negative. Like, oh, I made these people exactly like this other thing. I'm no longer unique, when in reality, you're actually doing something that is very difficult to pull off.
What are you afraid of? Me actually liking the adaptation?
I don't. Okay, that is a funny one to think, right? What is wrong with me wanting or liking an adaptation? I'm so afraid right now for Cowboy Bebop because they're touching my favorite series of all time. And it's like if they were going to do a live adaptation of Spice and Wolf, I'm pretty sure you'd be freaking out and being like, this is the worst.
That the opening scenes of that would immediately make it like age restricted.
Well, Cowboy Bebop's not any better in some ways, like.
Right, but Holo's just straight naked for the first episode.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen the first episode. Yeah, I guess you would have to figure something out with that.
Holo's naked. A lot.
Holy shit. All right. I didn't know this. This is harder to adapt all of a sudden. You just have like just straight censor bars. She would probably be wearing clothes. They would 100% put her in like underwear.
That's so against her character, and that's the thing. Is like one of the great things about the anime is like it aired on TV with her just being naked. Like they just removed her nipples and whatnot. And
yeah, we were in a different time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
like it's just
weirdly enough,
she's just Barbied.
Weirdly enough, I do think you could probably still get away with doing like Barbied stuff for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of a show that I've seen recently that was animated that did that route and was on TV. I don't watch a lot of TV that is like episodic shows. I'm trying to think the last episodic show I even watched.
It's weird because like I remember even as a kid, like the Digimon series that had like the human digivolve into Digimon. It's like the transformation scenes is turning them into Ken dolls into Barbie dolls. Like they're like strip the clothing off, or old Sentai fit things in general. Like there's a lot of times where people just ended up nude, and it's just like
Sailor Moon.
You expected it. Sailor Moon. Yeah,
Sailor Moon's a huge one. Yeah,
all of those. Like it's just like. That was expected. At some point, there's going to be somebody who's naked for a few scenes.
Yeah.
Until they become the powerful thing that they want to do. And that was just like an accepted trope for the longest time. And now you don't see it as much. That is true.
Yeah. Nowadays, transformations are definitely not just go to clothes coming off as the whiteness takes over your body and then new clothes form off of your that doesn't happen nearly as much. Why is that gone? No. There's got to be an anime that's doing that right now. All right, someone know an anime that I'm wrong and that maybe I should go watch, but yeah, it's most likely just like a Sailor Moon continuation. Are they still making new Sailor Moons?
Hold on, I've got an idea for a short for somebody. They should have a transformation scene where a young schoolgirl transforms into a magical schoolgirl, and in between the cutscenes, it ends with the bad guy ready to fight her, and ends with them getting arrested.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Yeah, she just transforms in front of the bad guy.
Illegal. You can't do that anymore.
That's so funny. Just transforms, and all of a sudden the police just tackle him and just put him on handcuffs. It's like, I've done my duty. It's like, what the That's just their power. Their power is like they changed clothes in front of the bad dude. We see
And
it
they get
as an
arrested.
actual like transformation, like in Sailor Moon. Oh my god, man!
Yeah.
Someone do this! Oh my god, I want to do this.
You know,
No,
it exists out there somewhere,
There
but
ha-
it's the lazy version. It's that one that cuts to like everybody like breaking down the door and jumping through ceilings. It's
oh
like,
yeah.
don't do the lazy one. Somebody actually do a full
FBI,
send
open
one, please.
up.
Yeah, I'm tired of that meme. It was funny the first time, but yeah, now it's just a lazy.
Yeah, I definitely, dude, there is some things about old tropes that I'm wondering if we'll ever make it come. Weirdly enough, Voltron, I actually really, really did enjoy them coming back with some old things and like continuing the good old, yeah, you're
The new Voltron series is amazing.
yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, they did such a good job at capturing what those type of shows meant to me as a kid and
Oh yeah,
continuing it on. It was like watching grown-up Power Rangers basically for me. Like what? Oh, Voltron. Yeah. I was like,
my
what's
head's
going on,
always
Jay?
covering Voltron.
Jay, what's going on? Oh
No,
man.
I like Voltron.
I like it a little too much. I need to touch Voltron right now. That was definitely one of the ones that came out of nowhere as far as Netflix making originals. I don't know
The last season of that is like one of my favorite seasons of a cartoon thing ever. It's amazing. People need to watch that.
Yeah,
They're sleeping on it.
If you guys have not watched Voltron yet, it is good from start to finish.
And it just gets better as it goes.
Yeah, we watched the first season of that and then binged it up until I think season 3 was out at the time, and then just had to wait and wait for every new season to come out. I think there's 7 seasons altogether, something ridiculous.
There's something ridiculous, but
Yeah.
man, by the time you get to the last 2 seasons, it is some of the most hype TV show ever.
They have
I can't praise how good it is.
such good world building. The character dynamics grow throughout the show in such a nice way that's refreshing and also heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, and they do such a good job at keeping you wanting more, which is always
You love the bad guys at the end. Like there's so much just like
oh man.
the bad guys get a spotlight in such a great way to make them just the best villains they could be.
Yeah.
I love this show.
Yeah, dude, if you can make you feel for the villain, so much plus in my book.
Yeah, no, and it's great too because it's like you don't even just you don't just feel for them. You understand that they know they're doing something bad, but you accept it. You're like, this is you. You're doing the thing that you need to.
Yeah.
And you're a bad guy, and I'm glad you're a bad guy. You're the best bad guy you could be.
You understand
It's
their
great.
motives and where they're coming from, which is pretty huge because, of course, there's always 2 stories. There's always 2 sides to a coin. And I think that's something that Voltron did extremely well as far as character development and things. You just like these characters. They're pretty much all lovable characters throughout the entire series. Maybe not lovable. Some of them you might hate.
It's like
but
the bad guys never turn to be a good guy. Like that's not a thing that's ever come out of it. Like you never feel sympathetic to a person. You never feel like what they're doing is right. It's like they have their side to the story, but it's just powerful. It's a powerful story.
I want to go rewatch that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like Thanos has like such a just top level like purpose.
Sure, you can
And
see
it's
his
like-
motives and all of that.
You can
'cause
see his
it's-
motives. He got stuff like he's okay, but never at the end of it do I feel like, yes, I can get behind this.
yeah, no, it's
you know,
pretty
like,
dumb. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, but really, dude, you just need somebody bigger than you to bop you over the head and tell you you're stupid.
in a lot of ways, yes. I definitely weirdly enough for Thanos and his whole thing of being like, all right, we need to do half. We just need to half everybody and we'll be at the perfect population numbers. It's like, dude, you really need to figure out some stuff here about economics and how all this actually goes down, because I'm pretty sure if we just lost half of everybody, all of a sudden this wouldn't be the greatest thing. It wouldn't like work out as well as you think it does. Pretty sure
I could recommend really quick to everybody, if you want to go watch one of my favorite comedy skit groups ever, Ready, Loading, Run is amazing. LLR. They have a skit, one of my favorite skits, where they do the Thanos snap skit, but it's literally everybody in the world had a 50% chance themselves that they would get snapped, and only one person in existence loses the coin flip.
Oh, that's so no.
Yeah,
That poor person. Oh my god. I'll have to check them out. I've never even heard of them. Link them. Here, give me their thing. We can do shout outs for people. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they're a huge comedy group out of Canada. They have amazing skits. Love them.
I love comedy. That's where it's at, man. Yeah. Getting a good laugh in. Oh man. But I feel like normally we would wrap these up in a lot of ways with Wonder Egg. And yeah, so still watch Wonder Egg, but maybe not the newest episode, you guys.
Best of luck to all of you who saw it. It's it's great.
But it's what sprung today's episode of don't pull a Wonder Egg, you guys. Be a good show. It's still a good show, but don't pull a Wonder Egg.
I guess before we send our way out, is there any new anime that you are watching in the meantime?
Is there anything that I just started? There's not, but I know there's one on my list that I'm going to start once we finish Somoli and the Forest Spirit. We're on the last 2 episodes right now, and that is Devil is a Part-Timer.
You haven't seen it yet?
I have not seen that.
I love it.
And I heard it's getting a season 2, and I really want to see it. So that's on my radar to get done before season 2 comes out. Other than that, I've been keeping up with Jujutsu Kaisen, which you all should be watching. It is only getting better. And yeah.
What about Wonderland? Whatever it's called. I can't remember it anymore.
Promised Neverland. Yeah.
Is that its own segment at some point?
I definitely have been keeping up, so I can get you caught up. And we can go over that at some point. I haven't watched the newest few episodes. I will say this right now. It is not getting any better. It just, to me, took a weird turn in writing where it's like, oh no, like, I understand where they're coming from and what they want to do with this character, but it's just so blatant how they could have done this better, basically, in my eyes. Like, what I would have done with bringing Norman back. I mean, you know Norman's back. Anyone who's been keeping up, if you guys don't know that, then yeah, sure, but...
So here's the weird thing. The majority of people watching it still like it.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, as I said, like, I think it comes from me now just realizing how poor of the writing was. Like, I was not in your camp. Like, we went over this 100%. Was not in your camp. I called Norman coming back, and I started to like look into it more and realizing, oh no, like, this is not the direction we should go. But at the same time, I don't know. Maybe if I explain it to you what's going on, you might come back. We'll have to see. Maybe it's more intriguing to you now.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll do that for next time. We'll have, can we drag Jay back into the Promised Neverland? Probably not. I'm just going to, spoilers, Jay will never come back.
I really don't think so.
Yeah. But how about you? Have you been watching any new anime? You've been keeping up on anything new?
Actually, you've gone back to watch a bunch of stuff. So watching Eureka 7 or Eureka 7, whatever you guys want to call it. I know everybody has a different way of saying that name. But yeah, I went back and started watching that again.
Nice.
Just finished Kid Cosmos, which is not an anime, but is animated. So whatever, screw you. I like it.
Close enough.
It's one of the best shows I've watched recently by far. Loved it. Everybody should watch that, especially if you like Hilda. If you've seen that, that's good too. Yeah, I don't know. There's things out there that I'm watching. My brain can't think of them right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been keeping up on some stuff, like as far as like super hype stuff that people have been trying to keep up with. WandaVision, been watching that, which
I haven't started that, but
you should probably binge it at some point just so we can talk about it, because I think it deserves definitely deserves a talk. Now that it's all done, and I feel like we can talk freely about it. But yeah, I definitely, if you guys are watching anything new that you think we should be watching, that we should check out, be it anime or a TV show or whatever it is, because we like all sorts of media. Maybe it's a game. Maybe you're playing a new game. Yeah. But wait, what did I hear? But yeah, check us out. We're gonna be live on Twitch now every Monday, starting probably around 8 p.m. sometime around that.
8 o'clock, yes.
Yeah. 8 p.m. Pacific time. Jesus Christ, I can't talk. But yeah, so check us out there. Check us out on the social medias, Twitter, all of that. I'm trying to keep up. We'll have the link to the Discord as well. So come hang out with us in there. Hopefully, we're going to have more watch parties coming up as more of you guys feed into the Discord. And yeah, guy, are we working on a sign off? Are we doing this? Are we doing the
sign off one day? That's a whole thing. I'll figure that out one other day. All right, wait, guys.
All right, bye, you guys.
Thank you for watching. Peace.